Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the Turnback Gallery here in Leigh. And before I forget, thanks to everyone at the gallery for making us welcome. It's good to be back. My name's Jeffarama. I'm a punk poet from Bolton. And I'm sure I know most of you. I've seen you at one gig or another over the last 40 years. And it's great to be back. I think most of you were probably here in February when we had the Rock Against Hate with 3 bands performing, the Scar Tribute Band, and we had the Death or Glory Clash Tribute, and of course we had Buzzcocks Tribute. Buzzcocks. And the good news is, the lads are back tonight. So we're going to, I'm going to have a chat with Paul about his book. This book, which I've just finished reading, Paul.
Good.
About half an hour ago. And it's called 16 Again. How Pete Shelley and Buzzcocks changed Manchester music. And me. Well, him. And me, I suppose, and no doubt every one of you. So we're going to have a chat about that in a couple of minutes. I just want to say, though, thanks for supporting another event that's sold out. It's very much appreciated by the Pete Shelley Memorial Campaign. So it's great to see you all here again. It is, of course, Pete Shelley's 69th birthday. And I'm sure we'll have something equally spectacular for his 70th next year. Oh yes. We expect to see you all here again then. It's been a special day as well in that we've unveiled the Buzzcocks Lyrics Song Bench and the Memorial Gardens. So thanks to everyone who made that happen. Lynn for doing the gardens, and whoever's arranged the bench with the song lyrics. 17 song lyrics for the 17th of April for Pete's birthday. So it looks pretty amazing, and I'm sure you're all going to use it. Some stage, come and chill out in the gardens. Remember Buzzcocks, remember Pete, and special thoughts and mentions, of course, for Paddy Mitchell. And yeah, big hand for Paddy. And I'm sure you'll all have people that you want to remember while you're around here. The sun shone for 10 minutes. Time enough for Howard to say a few words, and for Paul to say a few words, for Lynn to say a few words. And I think it's quite poignant with Pete looking down over the car park. What more can you ask for? It's an honour to be involved in this, and so yeah. First things first, I'm going to have a chat with Paul now. We're going to have some music, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So I want you to all think of an appropriate question, and then Paul will be signing his book at the end. Okay, so I hope you'll enjoy what we've got in store for tonight. So first, our first guest. As you probably know, he was a drummer with The Fall, Tom Hinkley and the Lovers, Bricks and the Extricated, and now the House of All, the latest project. He's also an established author, this being his 3rd book. Please welcome Paul Hanley.
Sounds quite impressive when you put it like that.
I'll build it up for you, Paul, no problem. Yeah, so welcome, Paul. Welcome back to the Turnpike Gallery. And thanks for doing the opening.
No, it's an absolute honour then.
It's significant, isn't it, for Leigh?
It is, yeah, it is. Definitely. I mean, it's great that he's been recognised by his hometown. I mean, what a brilliant thing. And obviously the mural's incredible, and the bench is as well. I think it's fantastic.
It's great that we're carrying these things on. So, on to yourself. Seems like you're having a busy time.
It's mad, isn't it? it doesn't. I don't know how it worked that way because you don't do everything at the same time. But then it all happened at the same time. The book came out just as we were going on tour with House of All, so it looks like I'm this huge media figure. Well, I'm clearly not this huge media, but it just seems to all happen at the same time. I don't know what it is. Don't know if that's what happens with Elton John as well. You know.
I'm interviewing him next week. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, you're enjoying it, and that's the main thing.
But yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying being in a band. Well, you can't make a living out of being in a band anymore. So if you don't enjoy it, you're in real trouble.
How's the tour going?
Great. We played Sheffield and Glasgow last weekend. We're off to down there, London tomorrow.
Excellent. And you're in Manchester on Saturday?
Yeah, Gorilla.
Excellent. Anybody going on Saturday to Gorilla watching the House of All?
God bless you. God bless you, sir.
Barry, if you hadn't put your hand up then, there would have been a bit surprised.
We'd have been in trouble then, wouldn't we?
I might see you there, mate. Yeah, so are the tickets still available?
Yes, yeah, I mean, what you're supposed to say is that the last few tickets, get on there quick, the last few tickets, I mean, they say that about every gig I've seen in the last 5 years.
We say that at all, though, we don't. And they're free, you know. Yeah, so this book, excellent book, and I'm not just saying that, I really did enjoy it. I went to meet Paul last week. Me and Tracy went to Altrincham to his book signing there, and it's striking, isn't it? It's got the Malcolm Garrett design, and it's absolutely beautiful. I said to Paul, I'll do my best to read it in time for the show, and I managed to get through it.
That's a ringing endorsement, isn't it? I managed to get through it.
Well, it would have been a bit quicker, but for all the bloody footnotes on it. But it's an absolute encyclopedia. I can't recommend it enough. And I said to Paul, yeah, I'll aim to get through it. I might be a poet, and I might have an English O level, but I'm not the fastest reader. So you might get yours personally signed, like mine. Get it read. Well, I did, Paul. I did, yeah. But yeah, it is a fantastic book. I think what I liked about it was the, Paul's relationship with the bands. Obviously, knowing Buzzcocks, Fall, and Joy Division, of course. And I think that, that personal touch really went down well. So it's your third book, this.
Yeah. Isn't it?
After Leave the Capital and Other Leading Guests.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And you got an English Lit degree in 2017.
I did, yes. That was what kind of started it all, really. Because once you do a degree, you're pretty much writing all the time, and then I just didn't stop, really. So that's how I ended up writing books.
Why did you wait till like 50 odds to start your degree?
I was earning a crust.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I must be the first person on earth who's paid off the student loan. I started taking out my wages as soon as I finished, and then I'll be dead before I pay this off. Unfortunately, I'm still alive, so I've had to pay it.
Absolutely brilliant. So this book then, it's there's no denying your Buzzcocks fanaticism. It's been a labour of love.
Yes.
Well, how long did it take to write?
It took probably three something years. I think I lost the. Well, I think everybody went a bit bonkers during lockdown, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I kind of lost momentum a little bit. But probably just over 3 years. But I knew what I wanted to write. Well, I started off trying to write a straight biography because I think everyone's aware there's not many books about Buzzcocks compared to their contemporaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
So but as I was writing it, I kept thinking, well, I keep having to take my opinions out there, so I'd rather put them in. So then it became kind of like my personal, which sounds a bit pretentious, but my kind of personal journey with the band, if you like. So
yeah. Had you always even before you did your degree, had it in your mind to write about Buzzcocks? Or was it something that once you'd started writing, you thought, I've got to do?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. So I had an idea for my first book, which was about Manchester Studios, which ended up just being about Pluto, and that was my big idea. You have that one big idea, I'm going to be a writer, this is the one I want to write. Yeah. But then when you start thinking about what else I want to write about, and if I wanted to write about a band, Buzzcocks is pretty much the only band I would want to write with. I've not got that relationship with any other band at all, or anything like it really. I mean, there's bands I love, and there's bands you could maybe say are more important or better even in some ways, but they're that, you know, that kind of...
Yeah, on your heart.
Yeah.
Well, bringing us on to that, I wanted to ask you, because I read with interest about the first time that Paul saw Buzzcocks, which was at Rock Against Racism in 1978. So could you take us back to that day?
Yeah.
Have your feelings for that from then?
Yeah, so I kind of got into them so whenever another music came out, so by the time it got round to that gig, I was a massive fan by then, and I went to St Bede's, which is a school basically bases Alexandra Park, which is where the gig was. John Marr went to the same school, and he left at 16 to join Buzzcocks, and I left at 16 to join the full band. When that Rock Against Racism, I was 14, and Buzzcocks was my favourite band. And the thing about Alexandra Park, where it was, which I don't know if you know where it is.
I used to work nearby.
I used to get the bus to school, being a grammar school lad. I lived in Wythenshawe, and it used to drop me off at one side of Alex Park, and then you have to transverse it to get to school on the other side. And you used to take your life in your hands because you used to get beaten up going through it. So Alexandra Park was always a place of a bit of fear for me, because I did one time get mugged. This guy did a kung fu kick on me, kicked me to the ground and didn't me watch. So it didn't hold a lot of great memories for me, Alexandra Park. But then they announced this Rock Against Racism gig, and it was the only people, because there was one in London that Ash played and Tom Robinson, and then they decided to put one on in Manchester, and the Buzzcocks were by far the only band who could have headlined it from Manchester. There was nobody else anywhere near them, and Buzzcocks were kind of, they were, Love You More had just come out, so they were right almost at the creative peak really, and I don't know if anybody was there who was here, but it was a gloriously sunny day in July, and it was, you know one of them kind of memories that you get in your head and you build it up, and it was just the perfect day really. My favourite band were playing in somewhere, and it transformed Alexandra Park into a place that had good memories to it. So that was kind of a key part of the book and part of the appeal of the band as well.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately my first gig was watching The Clash at the Apollo, and I've never stopped going to gigs since. There must be about 2,000 gigs now, you know, that was 1980, and it changed my life. So anybody who was there in 1980 at The Clash, or a Rock Against Racism in Alexandra Park is there as well. Oh, you're not at that one. Yeah, it is, it's life-changing moments, isn't it? And I think I think for me, reading your book, Paul, it is packed with facts and information, and as you say, your observations, which intrigued me a bit, because you're not afraid to, so I'd say, well, that doesn't add up, or that doesn't add up, but he said this, and he said this, and you kind of like, it doesn't sound a bit thingy.
Well, it's one of the interesting things about memory, isn't it? And people remember things differently.
Yeah.
And any history or any book about things kind of weaves it into this narrative that makes sense with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And sometimes it doesn't quite work out that way. You know, you see stories about the Beatles or whatever, and John will remember one thing and Paul will remember another way. And I'm not sure there is a real answer, really. You know, and God knows how they wrote the Bible. How did anyone remember that? But so I think that's an interesting thing to look at, because there's a couple of memories where Steve remembers it one way and Pete remembers it. And what's really interesting is Steve's are all fireworks and bombs, and Pete's are like, well, it was all right. You know, the contrast between the characters really comes across in the way they remember things.
I think the story that sort of like highlights that is, well, it's quite an amusing story when Garth was playing with them in Leeds in about 1978, and Pete Shelley had worn a Man United shirt, which 1978 in Leeds is probably going to cause a bit of aggro. But the way it's remembered is, well, you tell it.
Well, the thing about it, the first time I knew about that gig is there was a bootleg came out called Razor Cuts, which came out in like 1979 maybe, so it was a bit after it had actually happened. And it's got this fantastic rant from Garth at the Leeds fans. Yeah. Because basically Pete came on in a Man United shirt, and the Leeds fans went absolutely crackers. As they would. And he said, I didn't know, nobody told me. But they told him before the gig. He knew it was him. And it absolutely kicked off, and they got barricaded in the dressing room. But then they come out, and they managed to get in the car. How they managed to get into the car unscathed, I'm not sure. But if you read Pete's account of it, from Louis Shelley's book, he says, so we were sitting in the car ready to go, and this guy knocked on the window. Garth got on the window down, and the guy stuck one on him. And then Steve Diggle tells the story, so we're in the car park, and there's 100 people around us, someone smashed the back rear window. And then Garth ran the window down. So I'm not sure you would wind the window down if a brick had just come through the back window. But having said that, if there was anyone I can imagine doing it, it'd have been Garth in 1977.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got 100 lads rising and he's wind the window down. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a funny story that in the book. It did make me laugh. But for you, Buzzcocks, the story of the Buzzcocks, I think is quite unique, and I think this is where your love of them comes from. You know, you had to have a divorce or thing, meeting in Bolton, and then the split, and him going to Joy magazine. Which, if he hadn't gone to Joy magazine, it wouldn't have worked out the same way, would it? No. You also had the artwork of Malcolm's, you had the great singles, which also had a brilliant B-sides, and Spiral Scratch, of course. Yeah. So was it all that put it together for you?
Well, I discovered Buzzcocks when Another Music in a Different Kitchen came out. So, for me, Buzzcocks, my Buzzcocks, if you like, which is a bit of a ridiculous thing to say, is Pete, Steve, Paddy, Steve Garlick and John Marr. And then, obviously, once you discover the band, what's great if you do that, I could go back and I could go forward with them. But for me, I mean, I thought the Spiral Scratch version of Buzzcocks were great, but I think they got, and very canny of Howard, I think, he kind of realised that there's only so far you can take that. And he called it a day. I mean, really early, they only did like 12 or something gigs. But the interesting thing about that is, the Sex Pistols are about the same stage. And they had, you know, when Howard left Buzzcocks, Sex Pistols had pretty much all the songs they were ever going to write. And it took Johnny Rotten another year and a half to realise that was kind of all over. So it was really clever of Howard. I mean, I know he left to do his degree, but he knew there was only so far you could take that band in that kind of way. Because even his singing, he was kind of doing an impression of Johnny Rotten in a lot of ways. I mean, they were great, don't get me wrong, I thought the Spiral Scratch, but it would have been a real travesty if Pete had never been the frontman in a band, would it?
True, yeah. I mean, that record in itself was groundbreaking, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Second independent kind of record, you know, after the Damned and that.
Well, the Damned were on Stiff, which is notionally an independent, but they had a lot of money behind it, but they had like industry insiders running it. So I think the big thing about Spiral Scratch, and I think the fact that it exists is almost, well, probably more important than what's on it in a way, is because it was 5 people, if you take the band and Richard Boone was the manager, saying, right, we're going to put a record on. How do you put a record on? I've no idea. And, well, we're going to have to find out. And they were only young people with no money, and they did it, and, you know.
And Pete's family lent
famously,
money,
The thing I found out when I was writing the book, I knew that Pete's family had lent them the money. What I didn't realise was, they didn't have the money, they had to borrow it themselves. They borrowed, Pete's dad borrowed it off a bloke who came door to door, like, you know, I mean, he wasn't quite a loan shark, but he wasn't Barclays Bank. No. and it was like £2,500, a lot of money in them days. Sorry, 250. It was a lot of money. Yeah. And they didn't have it. And I always think, I said that when we did the bench before, you know. You had Pete, he had a promising career in computing, you know, he was a clever, bit of a boffin, Pete. Yeah. And then he suddenly announced, oh, by the way, I'm leaving all that, I'm going to join a punk rock band. And they said, well, here's the money to make a record. I mean, what a fantastic thing that is.
So was it John Maher that inspired you to be a drummer?
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think I've pretty much followed his template all the way through. He left St Bede's to join Buzzcocks, I left St Bede's to join the Fall. And the first song I ever learned to play the drums was 16, because I learned to play the drums, but I didn't have a kit. I learned to play the drums watching Top of the Pops, playing on the arm of a chair. And then, when I got a drum kit for my 14th birthday, I only knew how to play on the arm of the chair, I didn't know what all the others did. So if I stayed out the stairs, the arm of the chair, what do I do with the rest of my limbs? And Steve, my brother, said, well, I've seen this band, and they've got a song where he only plays one drum all the way through, and it was 16. Which he does actually move about a bit, if you know, once you get into it. And so the first song I ever learned to play the drums was 16. I haven't heard it, I didn't hear it for another 3 months or whatever. But yeah, so that was, so yes, I'd be 100% it was a rock. Well, you've got to remember, so that was 1978. I was in Manchester, and there was Carl Burns out the Fall, and Steve Morris out of Joy Division, and John Maher, who are still, to this day, 3 that I think are the greatest drummers I've ever come across. And they were all there, you know, you could see them. I went to watch the Fall rehearse, Buzzcocks were into the room. So I was within kind of, I think that's the big thing about punk, Not so much that all the music that went before was rubbish, because I think that's a complete one.
Yeah.
There was some great music going on, but the ability to make the transition from a punter to being in a band is, and it's basically down, you know, in Manchester, it's down at Free Trade Hall gig, isn't it? Everybody was there. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but these things become a cliche because of...
Well, that's part of the story, isn't it? The Free Trade Hall gigs that they put on, and you know, it led to the legend, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, everything else, and I think that's what makes Buzzcocks quite unique in a lot of ways. A lot of these things didn't really happen to other bands. Buzzcocks made them happen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, one of the key things is they read the NME and they see, you know, an article that says this band in London did a Stooges song.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember the NME. It wasn't a pamphlet. It was a big, heavy read, big, inky kind of thing. And this was like, you know, page 58 and a little column at the bottom, and they were flicking through it. Blimey, Stooges. Well, based on that one sentence. We're going to borrow that car, we're going to go down to London, and we're going to find out where the Sex Pistols are, which, you know, it wasn't easy then, there was no internet, you know. No. So they go down to London, they meet Richard at Reading, who was at Reading University, Richard Boone. Right, but we want to go and see the Sex Pistols, how do we do that? Well, ring the guy who wrote the review, he might know. So they ring the guy, they ring the NME, and at this point you think, well, he's not going to be there, is he? They ring him. He's there, he answers the phone, and he knows how to find the Sex Pistols. I mean, it's stuff of legend, isn't it? So then he says, I haven't got a number, but the manager owns a shop in down the road called Sex. So they think it's a sex shop, obviously, as you would. Well, we'll go there. And they go there, and then he could have been gone. He could have been stock taking, you know, he could have been down the wholesalers or whatever, but he was there. And he said, oh, by the way, they're playing tonight. And they didn't play again for a month after that weekend. So all that came together. And it's like a fairy tale, isn't it? It's ridiculous. Yeah. But the key thing about it all is they didn't say, well, next time we've got 2 Bob, we'll come down again. He said, the next thing we need to do is bring them up to Manchester. And they did it, you know, and he had faith in them that they could do it, which again was, you know, that could have been anybody, couldn't it? They could have been, yeah. But, and then those 2 Sex Pistols gigs, because there was 2 Free Trade Hall, you know, like a month and a half apart. Mm-hmm. And the whole scene built up around them, and it's like a film script, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I know you can impart a lot of legend into these things, but the truth of it is still pretty amazing, I think.
And the chances of it all happening, all coming off. When you'd be asking them to select your lottery numbers these days. The chance of it happening is just remote, isn't it? So 16 again, was it always going to be called 16 again, or?
It seemed like
taking you back to that age.
Yeah, well, it's two reasons really. It takes me back to that age, but I think one of the key things and why Pete was such a brilliant lyricist and such a unique lyricist was he had this ability, because he wrote a lot of songs when he was 15, 16, looking more when he was 15, I think he was, or something like that, or maybe slightly older. But he could put himself, and he was still doing songs that he'd written when he was a teenager. Like, you know, Telephone Operator he wrote, and that was when he was his solo career. Yeah. But he could put himself in that mindset of a teenage person and sing with the passion and of the confusion of what it was to be like to be 16, and with real authenticity. And he wasn't condescending. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't Jilty John. It was. This is how weird it is to be a teenager with all this going on. And I think that was a mark of his. I don't think genius is too strong a word really, as a lyricist and as a songwriter. So
it was a soundtrack to a lot of our lives, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Growing up, the trials and tributes of your love life or just life in general, and that record, Another Music in a Different Kitchen, you know, it was part of the fabric for any serious punk collection, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there's no doubting that the quality, the music and the production, absolutely first class. But I'll tell you what I had forgot, Paul. It sort of like brought it back together. For me, who's like a Buzzcocks fan but not a fanatic, is that, you know, that 18 months between them 3 albums, that had kind of gone out of my mind. A blistering pace.
I mean, I don't think it's particularly healthy pace. I don't think it was particularly healthy for Pete's mental state. But you can't argue with the results. You know, so they had 2 albums out in 6 months. Pretty much 6 months. And the second album, I mean, you know, people struggle with the second album. You know, people now, you know, the Stone Roses struggled with the second album. It took them 5 years. Yeah. He had another album out in 6 months. And you know, you've got to remember, he was writing pretty much all the songs. Steve Diggle had one song on each album, and Love Bites, it's a different album from another music, but it's pretty much as good, and it's got the biggest hit on. Remember that?
And a lot of the songs he did weren't actually on the albums.
Yeah, that's another thing they did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but and the other thing is, of course, they didn't say, well, we've got a single, let's stick some crap on the B-side. The B-sides are brilliant. The reason Singles Going Steady is such a fantastic album is it's got all the B-sides on the roll, and they're as good as the A-sides, but showing every aspect of the band.
Yeah.
You might, I'm a bit of a fan, I don't know. I don't know if you've noticed, but yeah.
Are you going to be on Mastermind?
Yeah.
We'll expect to see you on Mastermind.
It'd be a bit weird to write a book, I think. I mean, you could do it, but I think that's why I couldn't write a book about another band, because I don't have that depth of feeling. I mean, I love other bands, you know, I think that, you know, the Beatles are the greatest thing, the greatest band that ever lived, but they're not my band. They're everybody's band, but you know, that thing of this is my band and they're going now is...
I'll tell you another thing. I'll just probably finish on this. I think I've covered a lot of things I wanted to ask about, and then we'll get Buzzcocks on, and then we can have a Q&A after, so get thinking of what questions you want to answer. But I'd actually forgot, even though I was at the gig, I'm a proud Boltonian, as you might know, and I'm proud of the role that Bolton played in the Buzzcocks story. They played the first gig there, and then the last gig there before they split up, like in the early 80s. But I was actually at the Buzzcocks gig at Silver Well Street in Bolton in December 80. I forgot that was the last gig until they reformed in about 89, which you mentioned in your book, which I also went to at the Apollo. But what struck me as well was the altruism of Buzzcocks in that at the Bolton gig, Steve Jones and Paul Cook were there in the bar. They'd come along to support them as kind of a thank you for what Buzzcocks had done for the Pistols.
Yeah.
That's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having a pint in the bar with, you know.
Amazing. Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I think Buzzcocks presented the Sex Pistols to Manchester before they were a cabaret act, you know, before the Bill Grundy thing. So I think people got what they were about in Manchester more than perhaps maybe other parts of the country. But when once that had been on, that Bill Grundy thing, they became a bit of a, you know, a bit of a joke, not a joke so much, but you know, a bit of a kind of an act rather than a band, you know.
Well, as Malcolm McLaren said, I feel like you've been swindled. I mean, has anybody read the book? Who's read the book so far? You enjoy it? Yeah?
Apart from the asterisk, so...
They're
the best bit! They're the best bit then!
I must admit, with all the footnotes, you might need your bifocals at times, but it's absolutely packed with information. And I couldn't believe how much information's in there, Paul, to be honest. It is absolutely brilliant. I couldn't put it down. And for me to read a book in a week is pretty good going.
I'll take that, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's going on the back cover of the next edition.
Right, so, who wants to listen to... the one thing I did finally want to ask is because you got this personal link. You mentioned a couple of times that there was the complete history of Buzzcocks. There was Diggle's book.
Yeah.
And Pete and Louis Shelley's book. Do you think your account has filled the gap that was needed?
Well, I'd like to think so. It'd be a bit weird if I said it was a bit pointless. But yeah, I think so. I think. I mean, obviously, I think Louis Shelley's book's great, and it goes into his songwriting really well. But it doesn't, you know, it doesn't flesh out the story, and it's not meant to. And that's not a criticism of it. And Steve Diggle's book is Steve Diggle's book, you know, and it's you know how I invented sliced bread basically. But the Tony McGarry book's great as well, but it's this happened and this happened, and you know, and again, it's not a criticism. He's not setting out to do anything, but I think what my book hopefully does is to say yes, this is what happened, and this is why it's great, really, I think.
Well, I think you've got the mood in it brilliantly.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, please give it up, Paul Hanley. Excellent,